to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Penalty conceding kind of situation, but Atkinson did well. Oh my goodness! Have you seen a more freakish goal in A-League history? Riley McGreen with a scorpion kick into the top corner. It's one of the most amazing things we've ever seen. Come on, Ernie, on your feet.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Vickery looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind top or Stanley? It doesn't matter! Costa Barbarouses! Wow!
Like a salmon, a spawning salmon. And Diamante again. Oh, he's done it!
Unbelievable kick. Come on here.
Well, in the weeks leading up to November 19th, the start of this current, or gone now, most recent A-League men's season, I don't think anyone not wearing a green and black jersey, either professionally or as a fan, would have given Western United a shot or their tip as winner of the 2021-22 A-League men's grand final. But it doesn't matter because they've done it. They have done it. Western United 2-0 over Melbourne City in the A-League men's grand final. History being made, their first ever championship in just their third season of existence. It was quite an occasion. Jason Goldsmith.
Hello, Lachie. Yeah, it was. They were the better team on the night. They had the better finals campaign out of anyone. And a master class in coaching from Johnny Aloisi. And congrats to all involved with Western United. Magnificent effort. Third season. And they've taken home the toilet seat. Pretty impressive.
Well, I said that all the pundits, all the important people, even unimportant people, wouldn't have maybe given Western United a sniff of generating this kind of a result back in November. Did they figure in your estimations as a team who would go the stretch?
No, I think for mine it was, they've recruited a bit of a dad's army in terms of their list, and only really Jamie Young was the older guy that stayed on the park towards the end of it, and he proved what an absolutely outstanding goalkeeper he is.
Indeed.
He probably had the final series of all final series if you look at some of his saves. But we'll go back a week maybe, and you're a bit of a Nostradamus then, Lachie. You basically tipped the tactics, the score, the medalist, the winners. You got it all.
Oh, well, look, you know what they say about broken clocks, Jason? They are right twice a day, and that was one of my two for the day that time around, so I'll take it. Lord knows I've said far worse things, made far worse predictions. But yeah, look, I'm pretty sure I did say, without having listened back to it myself, that the first goal was always going to be pretty decisive in this game.
Earliest one in history.
And I just didn't know that it would happen that quickly. And I think that was, while I would have been interested to see how the game panned out if it didn't happen, that outcome I think was perfect. perfect for Western United, and they did exactly what they needed to do from that point onwards.
What they've done most seasons, they get an early lead and they defend it. But, it was a minute 40 or something. They got the corner.
Yeah.
An own goal against Nuno Reis, but if you look back and watch that, that was Priyovic's goal because he was the target man and there was 4 defenders around him in Melbourne City. They knew that's where they're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, as you said, he was instrumental in that. He was my prediction for the Johnny Warren going into it.
No, Joe Marston.
Joe Marston, yes.
Yep.
Well, he's my prediction for the Johnny Warren as well. He was that good. He could have won it. Anyway. He was my prediction for the Joe Marston. And, I mean, while he maybe faded a little bit in the last 20 minutes of the game, he was truly instrumental.
Yeah.
And even the second finish, controversial initially, though it may have been, VAR eventually proving that it was very much onside. Yeah. And actually, got to say, well done to the VAR for running it so efficiently this time. It was very nice. It was very refreshing, quite enjoyable. We did a really good job. But the way I on Twitter at the time was that's exactly what you get these kind of strikers in to do. It wasn't a chance of the highest quality in terms of a team conception of a move or anything like that, but the ball fell to him. It was fortuitous. There might have been a question of offside. He could have been distracted by that question, but he just turned the ball into the back of the net without even taking a second thought.
Yep.
And that's exactly what you need from a Visa striker. And throughout the stretch of the final series, obviously player of the match in the grand final, but I think he was player of the whole series for me. The amount of times he popped up with important goals, his positional play allowing other players to get into goal-scoring positions. I just don't think anyone else had a more sizable impact on their team or on Western than he.
Maybe the bloke at the other end with the gloves on.
Yeah,
I would argue
that's true.
because if you go back to the elimination final and Jamie Young's save, that's what gets them through to the playoff for the victory.
Yeah, but other side of the coin, no one else on that pitch was getting the kind of finish that Alex Priovic was able to find.
No, I can agree with you. I'm just saying that he's also in the conversation.
No, I agree with you on that.
And Priovic scores the first 2 for Western United against Melbourne victory in the second leg, which is basically wins them that to take them through. And then City knew it. There was four guys. All the big fellas jumped up with Priovic at that first corner and couldn't stop him basically having the influence that it was going in. And from there scoring the second, which turned out to be the final goal. It was the perfect performance. They got the lead early and they held on to it. And if you look at the stats, they had one corner for the game, and that was that one in the first minute and a half.
Yeah, well, I mean, the final stat sheet from this game did have City having 60-odd% possession. I think it was 63, the final tally. 16 shots across the 90. Only one shot on target inside the first half, though. Is that stat sheet... does that stat sheet, it suggests that City ran them quite close despite the scoreline. Is that consistent with what you saw on the day?
You and I were both...
Because I don't think it was.
No, not at all. You and I were both there. They were stale. Right? And they were 2-0 down after 30 minutes. So they should have been chasing the game, and tactically they didn't do much to try and change things up. It's quite disappointing. I was sitting at the City end, having watched the grand final and being there last year when they didn't have their front, didn't have any of their Socceroos available. They were missing Good, Metcalf, McLaren, Naboot was injured, wasn't in the squad, and they had to change things up. And they changed things up and had things that were a little bit unexpected. They had a little bit of pace, a little bit of ball control, and a few match winners. And you talk of their last year's finals campaign, it was Tilio and Kolakovsky. And come this grand final, Tilio's the one that changed the game we talked about in the second leg of the semi against Adelaide for them to get to the grand final. Tilio was the one that changed things up. He's in the Socceroos squad. He's that impact player who makes a difference. They took way too long to bring him on. Yeah. He couldn't make an impact. He came on at 70 minutes or maybe even 65, whatever it was. They made a switch at half-time.
It was 66.
66. Okay. He needed to be on at half-time. They're 2-0 down at half-time and they're chasing the game. He needed to come on.
Well, and you talk about the impact that he made when he was given that chance in the grand final last year and last week against Adelaide. The substitution that was made in around a similar time of the game, around 60, 70 minutes in the semi-final against Adelaide. Roston Griffiths and Tilio both coming on in tandem with one another. We saw that really, really work well. And while I think it was more to do with Tilio than it was to do with Griffiths, Patrick Kisnorbo was very fervent in his praise for both those players and what they brought to the team. And yet only one of them came into the starting 11, and that was Griffiths. And I just... You say that he should have been on at half-time. I think he should have been starting to begin with.
Yeah,
and
it was very pedestrian in terms of the coaching selector. Sorry to interrupt. No. Finish, but it seemed pedestrian. It's like this is what's got us through most of the season, having that front three, but they have been quite pretty much out of form going into it. And then the X factors that made the changes in these finals of this year and last year, and the ones that they needed, they didn't do. And then the fact that they made a change, Kisnorbo made a change at half-time, so he took off Jenkinson for Galloway. Galloway gives you a few, he actually had a couple of shots in the second half. Of that inverted kind of movement, I guess. Jenkinson's been good all season. I mean, he is a consummate professional. He's a pro.
Yeah, he
doesn't do things wrong, but he doesn't provide that spark, which is what they needed.
No.
So that change for Galloway was good. But then they left Kolikovsky and Boss on the bench as well. Like he made the three subs, he made three players, right? Instead of some double changes and the rest of it.
But also, how much can you really hope for a singular fullback, important or useful in an attacking sense though he may be, to change the game?
Yeah,
a fullback, and there's a reason that so many Australian players that are young, the most position in which they're most likely to get minutes is in fullback. It's probably because it's at times can be the position of like lowest risk in Australian football. That's a place where you can put them in there, maybe if they make a mistake in a fullback slot, possibly doing the least amount of damage. I think that, and you know, a lot of Australian players are fast physical players, and that's a good qualities to have as a fullback. I don't think that's a coincidence. But I want to go back to the Tilio thing because it really, really aggravated me, and this is as someone who didn't have a horse in the race on the day. Obviously, I have people that I like from both sides, and maybe some from both sides that I dislike as well.
Yes.
But I couldn't believe, after the impact he had in that semi-final against Adelaide, that he wasn't starting this game. Now, the logic I can understand, or the logic I can imagining Patrick Kisnorbo went with on the day, is that Tilio having the impact that he had in the semi-final against Adelaide when he came on around 70 minutes was because of the state of the game. It's towards the end of the fixture. The lines are stretched. It's easier for a player like him to have an impact off the bench. But in a grand final, and you're welcome to disagree, I don't think you can gamble on being level or being in with a sniff against a Western United side who are known for taking leads and sitting on them. You can afford to take that gamble. I think someone who is so impactful should have started in this game. You can't go in with a mentality of, we'll be level at 70 minutes and then we'll bring our impact player on to change the game. Because by the time Tilio came on in this game, and while he did make City better, the game was already finished. If you had have given him 45 minutes, particularly either to play alongside Florin Berenguer or start in place of Florin Berenguer, who still was very clearly, while he had a few good moments, probably more off the ball than he did on, was clearly still being hampered by recovery from injury. Why couldn't he have started either in tandem or in place of Florin Berenguer? Because, well, by the time he came on, as we said, the game was already dead.
Hindsight is a beautiful thing, as we know, but it was tactically they were outplayed and they didn't move the chess pieces around much at all to change that up. You know, they're 2-0 down at half time. You should be making 3 changes. You got 3 subs. You make 5 changes, do 3 at the one time and mix it up because you're chasing the game, but it didn't appear to do it. So McLaren hardly touched it. Naboot looked pedestrian at best as well, and Lachie didn't have that crash-hotter game. The defence for Western United was outstanding. Kilkenny was controlling it in the middle, as he has done the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And Prijovic, as we talked about how dangerous he was at the front, up front, Congrats to them. Wonderful, wonderful victory. Not one they'd probably go back and watch the game again, maybe stick to the highlights, but it was good. A great crowd too. And one thing that I was very happy with, and 22,000 is a very good crowd for these two clubs. It really is. And the green and black end made a lot of noise and a lot of Western United fans. It was fantastic. Something for them to build on, hopefully. We want to get another team in Melbourne or in the A-League built up. I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like I was saying before with the, this time at the start of the A-League season, would anyone have given Western United a shot of this result? Equally, while there were some people online who were like, 22,000 and we're celebrating, do you not remember when A-League Grand Final crowds used to be double this size or something like that? Well, I actually think that, given the regular season attendances of these sides, if you had have gone at the start of the season to someone and say, Melbourne City and Western United will pull 22,000 people at the Grand Final, every single person, even without the knowledge of how challenging of a season it would be thereafter, would absolutely have taken that. Absolutely. And another thing we mentioned, not only was it great to see that wall of green and black on that sort of end, they, in terms of voice in this game,
they made some noise.
as we thought might be the case, they gave as good as they got against the City Actives. I thought they made a great noise, and it really was, even though the game wasn't always the best watch for a neutral because of the nature of how it was played out and what Western were trying to do on and off the ball. It was still really pulsating because, or at least to be in the stadium, because of that noise. It had
grand final,
it's so good because it reminded me what this league can be and what it is when it's got those,
when it's great,
when it's got good, those intangibles around it, when it's got the little periphery elements, because two sets of active fans making noise turns a game that isn't that engaging of a watch into a real entertaining contest, because you've got that rhythm and the tempo of active fans making that noise, really punctuating and accenting the game. It completely changes the product that you're looking at. If that had have been at Simmons in Geelong, played in front of 5,000 people, I would not have analysed or looked at that game or enjoyed that game in the same way. But because there were so many people, even though it wasn't the best football product, it was great.
Agree.
I was stoked with the number.
100% stoked. I agree with you completely. And the venue only holds 28,000 too. The people, it's actually not. It was all like there was gaps and there was holes, but it's almost full. There was 14,000 last year because the Sydney fans couldn't travel. 22 is more than successful, given crowds have been down the whole season, and Australian sports crowd are down across all codes, not just football, right? All codes, the crowds are down.
Yeah.
So it's a result. One thing that I read today, interesting enough, when you look at reviewing the season, of the 226 fixtures of the A-League season, 113 of them were rescheduled. So half of the games didn't play when they were supposed to play. So we had take some pot shots sometimes of the organisers and crowds and TV coverage and the rest of it. They've had to reschedule and make sure that the season finishes. So I'd like to sort of send congratulations or a warm round of applause at the fact that we did get there, We had Wellington, we had Perth Glory based on the East Coast for a long time and had to reschedule all these games. And football fans found it hard to know when the team was playing and where the games were and that kind of thing. And that will add to the whole thing as well, Having Monday games, Tuesday games, Wednesday games. We had games on every day of the season pretty much the last few weeks. So last few months, so it feels like this season's gone for 4 or 5 years, but it's done.
And I think as good as some of the things to come out of the grand final were, I think you're raising the right things in the sense that we shouldn't gloss over all the challenges that have been faced this season. I mean, we have had so much stuff, good, bad, and otherwise, more often than not bad or otherwise, happen this season, that even the month delay that we took at the start of this year to sort of allow everyone to catch up and let COVID sort of travel through the playing groups and give them that immunity kind of thing. I just forgot that happened. It feels like it happened 2 years ago. It was the start of this year. It's unbelievable. But to that end, as difficult as this season has been at times to watch, to follow, to defend, all of those sorts of things on and off the park. This grand final, being there in person, seeing both sets of active fans, seeing a team who have had their challenges and their external criticisms in Western United provide something to their fan base, to potential fans that gives them hope. This did make me think, okay, maybe, and I've maybe fallen for that bug again that next season might be better.
You know what? And when the stadium in Tarneet's built, if they stick to 10 or 15,000 seat stadium, that they would actually make a lot of noise would be perfect,
Look,
right?
and
because we get hung up on, Victory played at Marvel Stadium or whenever it used to be called, and they'd get 40,000 and stuff. It wasn't the right football stadium. You get the right rectangular football stadium like we've got in other parts of the country, then you don't need to work on numbers, you need to work on atmosphere and making it somewhere that people want to come back to.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think all of the problems that we've dealt with this year will necessarily be fixed by the start of next season. I don't know if they'll be fixed during the season. I can't guarantee any of these things. My level of trust for Australian football, pretty limited. But it was just nice to remember that when the A-League is good, it can be really, really, really good, because that noise, nowhere else in the country, no other code is doing that in the same way. There is nothing else like it. And we will hopefully someday recapture that and have it be a more regular thing.
I'm a believer like you, Lachie. I think so too. And I think the A-League All-Stars leading into that was quite a joyous watch on Wednesday night against Barcelona in terms of a nice crowd, and the crowd turned from cheering from Barcelona to cheering for the A-League All-Stars and seeing our young guns on display and that kind of thing. That is a lot of people are skeptical over, things like the kits and the squad choices.
we were pretty apathetic going into it, for sure. Hold my hands up.
I jumped off the couch when Cole was going to put him 3-1 up, It was actually pretty exciting. But anyway, when the football's good, and football, it is really good. It's really worth watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I do want to touch on a few more elements to sort of come out of the game. We've sort of touched on the fact that maybe Patrick Isnorbo, I think, has to hold his hands up for the way this game played out. Obviously, conceding an early goal is never ideal, but I think there are a lot of issues with the approach, with the changes, with the selections that, for me, cost his team the game. But that's maybe giving too much of a focus to where City went wrong and not enough of a focus to where Western United went right. And not just in this game, but over the course of the final series. Because, cast your mind back to the start of the series. Western United were limping into the finals. They went from a team who were right into the race to finish top with City to sort of clinging on to that third spot, and some of their fans legitimately nervous about the prospect of facing a Wellington side who had comprehensively beaten them on a number of occasions during the season. So to go from where they were and to have battled through the injuries that they've had to get to this result is a remarkable achievement. And it was great for the likes of those players who weren't able to feature. Nikolai Topor-Stanley, Stephen Lustica obviously came back for this game and played really well when he was on, and Alessandro Diamanti, Riston, who came back. There was just a lot of things to... Even if you do have your criticisms about Western United as a club, I think there was a lot of really nice narratives to dig into and feel positively about the Western United players.
Which was better for you, Diamanti changing into the full strip for the celebrations, or Josh Risdon dropping some expletives in his thank yous?
I think it has to be the Diamanti thing, because I was right up close to that when I saw it. I had to I did tweet a photo of him wearing the full kit. And so he was going, John Terry style, because I had to delete my original version of the tweet though, because I captioned it as Alessandro Diamanti was going full John Terry, and I think to go full John Terry is not particularly appropriate, so that was swiftly taken down. But I really, really loved that. And the other thing as well is there was some great redemption arcs, I think, in this side that got to taste championship glory. I mean, as I said last week, Connor Payne is not a player that when he came to Western United, a lot of people really rated all that highly, and he's gotten this success.
Was he headbutted? Do you reckon Jenkinson hit him in the head in their first
Yeah,
half?
I don't know if it was a
close.
red. I think they were both sort of toing and froing.
They were
but
handbags at 4 paces.
yeah,
It was interesting.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, redemption, correct.
And
yes.
they also put together a side who just coincidentally, I think, were uniquely well placed to be motivated to get a result against City. You had Kilkenny, who was frozen out under Warren Joyce during his time at Melbourne City, despite being
Player of the year
incumbent player of the season for City.
Yep.
You had Ben Garuccio, who obviously had won the championship last year with City, but been well and truly second fiddle, struggled for game time.
And
now,
probably the biggest highlight of the season too, with his scorpion kick goal on top of that
he's
too.
had the biggest individual highlight of the season. He's finished as the A-League's team of the season left back, ahead of Melbourne City's fullback options, might I add, and he's won the championship. And then Lachie Wales, a player who maybe didn't leave on bad terms internally with City, but was harangued consistently by City fans, and he's been a crucial part of their season, of their finals run. And players like that, you kind of just have to feel happy for them because they deserve it. Like I was stoked for Lachie Wales having rallied against a really difficult time at City to push on in the way that he has and get this result. It's hard not to be happy for people like
Absolutely. And you know who we haven't spoken about? John Aloisi.
Yeah.
Like what a story.
Talk about redemption arcs. Yeah, that's probably the best one.
John Aloisi, he gets his first coaching gig at Melbourne Hearts, right? Australian football legend. You look at his playing career, right? He's the first guy to play in all the first Australian to play in all the big leagues of the Premier League, La Liga, and Serie A. He comes back, Mariners, Sydney FC, Melbourne Heart as a player, and gets the Heart gig as a coach. Doesn't go very, very well. He's in the wilderness for a little while. Gets the Brisbane Roar gig. Does quite well with Brisbane, actually. He gets them quite up there. They were third and fourth and played in finals and stuff. And, then he sort of gets
He was up against some pretty difficult circumstances in terms of the ownership.
Owners and all the rest of it, yeah. And then Victory didn't want him. That was the other story, that they didn't want him as coach. And so he's come down here. His family's remained in Brisbane as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as he's gone through the process, yep. So there's a lot of players in that Western United list, like Kilkenny and the rest of it. So with all
we knew
all the COVID issues in the state borders and things like that. So John's been down here by himself, and he's getting massive raps, and rightly so. He has been the master tactician and got them the toilet seat.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, has it been the most enterprising and engaging football to watch over the stretch if you're not a Western United supporter? Maybe not. But it has been effective, and it has delivered a result that, not just for the club, but also for the individual. I don't think many people would have said that John Aloisi would come back from the Melbourne Heart days, or maybe even from the Brisbane Roar days, where, yes, he did make semi-finals, but again, the football wasn't always amazing. It did have a bit of a Dad's Army feel, that he would have come back from those stints to be a championship winning manager in the A-Leagues. I don't think a lot of people would have penciled that in as an outcome. And yet, despite the criticisms of the style from some people, it has delivered a momentous result for him as an individual and a momentous result for the club. And now the wheels are already in motion, Jason,
they are.
for this Socceroos legend to go forth and maybe step into the soon-to-be, you'd expect, vacant national team job.
Well,
now,
Arnie's contract is to the end of this campaign. So whether that's in 2 weeks' time or 6-7 months' time, it ends this year. They'll be looking for a new coach, I'm sure.
How do you see that sort of talk? Because John Aloisi
at the moment, it's newspaper talk, it's social media talk. They asked him the question, and he said he'd be honoured to do it. And everyone's running with the quote. But there'll be a job. There will be a job available to coach the national team.
Is there merit
at some stage?
From your perspective? Would you be happy with that? Because me personally, I think we should be massively pumping the brakes on this.
Why?
Well, look.
Tell you what, if we don't beat the UAE, then he'll get fast-tracked, get parachuted into the job pretty quickly.
You're certain that he'll be next?
I don't think they have the money to go after a big-name coach, and you've got a 4-year World Cup cycle to begin again. So, you know what I mean? Like, they're not going to see how it works. Anyway, I think we're jumping too soon. I think we are jumping too soon.
I just think,
but
can we maybe just let's not get caught up in the sort of the rush. I think maybe it might be another chance for us not to go after an Australian coach. As much as Ange praised the strength of Aussie coaches and all that sort of thing, we have seen this style of football, transition heavy, maybe a little bit more less possession focused. We have seen that have plenty of success in the A-League, and Graham Arnold also delivered heaps of results in the A-League with a similar brand.
Old people,
and it
old players,
and it hasn't worked at an international level.
The only reason that it will happen, the same reason that MacArthur have appointed Dwight York, is that everyone in mainstream Australia knows who Johnny Aloisi is from a player, right? That's what, from a marketing point of view and the rest of it, that's the reason they will.
From a PR perspective, it's a no-brainer. And I will say this to you, I did an interview with John Aloisi a few weeks ago for the Green Room, for Western United's club show. And after 15 minutes of sitting down with him, I mentioned to someone who was there on the day, that guy is going to be Socceroos manager. You just know that he will. And I am in no doubt that it's probably a matter of when, not if for John, but I don't think the when is now, because I like I said, we have had Australian coaches who have been massively successful in the A-League playing a certain brand of football, and it hasn't translated to the national team role. We are just coming off that experience with Graham Arnold, whose style is not that dissimilar.
No, I think players-wise too, older players.
I think for Aloisi, it's too soon. I think that I don't want to disrespect the achievement that he's been able to get with this title win, but let's just give him another season or two in the A-League, see how it shakes out. We need consistency.
Hear me out here. He gets his brother Ross to sit next to him in the national team. We get that little anger in the tunnel and on the bench.
We don't need...
we need to do something.
Anger is not what we need. We're missing the point with all this sort of stuff. And I would say the same thing about Tony Popovic. I do not want Tony Popovic as the Socceroos manager for the exact same reasons that I don't want John Aloisi as the Socceroos manager.
This is true.
At least Aloisi has more... intense PR benefits. I think it will happen eventually, but I'm not ready for it to happen yet. I think the only time we had of late that we had an Australian manager who worked really well, certain people hounded him out the door, and it was a complete disaster. The only one we had who really did a decent job in some respects in terms of delivering a trophy for the national side, we hounded him out of the door, and look where he is now. Well,
we can hound the current one in a second, where we can go through the squad.
Yeah,
Socceroos.
Yes, exactly. One final point before we do get into the Socceroos. Obviously, we've talked about all the good stuff to come out of Western United. I have just one final question, because you are a Melbourne City fan.
Yes.
About City, to reflect back on this season, because it is a pretty bitter pill for them to swallow, I think, to not just lose the grand final, having finished top, having fancied themselves for it pretty much all season, and that's internal as well as external. To lose it to Western United, I think, would have been pretty painful for them as well, given they are clubs that sort of deal with similar sort of issues off the field at times. But I want to ask you, as someone who is a supporter of Melbourne City, and I've put this question out to a few people over the last week. Let's go back to the start of the season, because we did the same thing with Western. At the start of the season, Melbourne City were coming into this A-League campaign having done the Premier and Championship double.
Yep.
They had hypothetically, or in some people's view rather, improved their squad, having brought in Matt Leckie, a storied Socceroo, playing experience in the top 5 leagues. So they were the reigning champions. They'd made their squad better. And at the end of the campaign, yes, they've won the premiership, but they didn't beat a single top 4 side in regular time all year, regular season as well as finals. Adelaide United was the first time they did it in the finals.
Yep.
They've been comprehensively outplayed in the grand final, which they have much more experience of playing in than a Western United, for example, or some of the Western United players. Comprehensively outplayed. In the context of that, the reigning champions, they've made the team better, and they've lost resoundingly without having beaten a top 4 team regular time. Does this go down as and when you factor in the Asian Champions League too, does this go down as a failed season for Melbourne City in your book? Is it a letdown? Is it a failure? I think worse?
Yeah, I think it's a letdown because they come into the season, so they win the Premier's Plate, so it's not, and then they go to the Asian Champions League. They didn't lose in the Asian Champions League, but they didn't progress. City Football Group, from taking over the Melbourne Heart licence, are talking about success in Asia, and for them, it's got to be about winning trophies. And they would come into the final series expecting this time we're going to have Jamie McLaren, we're going to have all of our Socceroos available for finals, which they did have. The start of the season, they also, Nathaniel Atkinson was still on the books. He hadn't gone to Scotland just yet, and he's one of the shining lights of the Australian team and the Socceroos. Shining light of the Olympic team and the Socceroos. So, yeah, I think it is a failure. They would probably wake up going, we should have won that. We were the best team of the year. We finished on top and we've missed out. And we're at home and you never get a better
If not externally, then I think internally it will definitely be seen as a failure. And I really do hope that not just the disappointment of losing the grand final, but the manner in which they lost the grand final. I do hope this brings about a bit of introspection for City, because my overwhelming feeling at the end of the game, particularly with Tilio not starting, coming on as an impact sub when the game was dead, is that maybe there's an extent to which Patrick Isnorbo and City, they don't actually have a fundamental understanding of what makes them good. Because you think back to the grand final last year, the best part of that grand final, which they won, was that the likes of Kolakovsky and Tilio were given that chance, and Atkinson as well, and they bossed it on the day.
Yep.
And since then, we've seen Kolakovsky barely feature for minutes. He's probably out the door now. Tilio, despite being a strong player, hasn't consistently started because of this kind of standing order of respecting the experienced heads. Scott Jamieson, safe position despite the form of Geordie Boss because he's the captain.
Naboo.
Matthew Leckie, Socceroo. Naboo has not done, in my view, nearly enough to warrant his starting spot ahead of Attilio, for example, and yet he's been a consistent starter. I just hope, and whether or not it happens is another question, that the way things have broken for them invites them to think, what is actually good about our sort of City project? What makes this appealing both to our fans and to the outside world of Australian football?
So we're going to, I guess the last few months, Berenguer was injured and Aidan O'Neill didn't feature as well, who are pretty key cogs in that team. They're going to lose Connor Metcalf to Germany. Tilio, from all reports, is overseas. We'll head overseas as well. So there's a chance for them to reload and have another look at it, I guess, which they'll probably be doing because I reckon they need a bit of a refresh. Yeah,
well, they've already sprung for one fresh new young talent. Obviously, Callum Talbot coming across from Sydney FC. I really do hope that he's not the last, because I think that youthful zeal is something they should be. They diverted from it this year. They need to lean into it more, because it was actually what made their team, the championship winning team, for me, so appealing, even if it was out of injury, even if it was out of necessity. So yeah, plenty of work to do, I think, at the drawing board for Melbourne City. But yeah, Western United, they will go into next season, despite the expectations of many, as reigning champions in season 2022-23, and might even by that point have some more Socceroos in their squad. Maybe some of the players that are there will be Socceroos, but look, we've got more potential caps or no caps to talk about on the other side of this break. Here on the Oz Football Hour, we're going to review the Socceroos selection for the UAE qualifier, and we'll get into that on the other side of this.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Ronaldinho gathers speed past Ramos. Elguera comes to meet him. He goes past Elguera. Ronaldinho at his very best.
listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Victory looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind Topo Stanley? It doesn't matter! Costa Barbarouses! Wow!
Diamante again! Oh, he's done it!
Unbelievable kick. Mamma mia.
Well, the big Socceroos squad. Now just two remain. The A-League Grand Finalists decided. Double intro music just playing there. Wow. I don't like the sound of my own voice.
Yeah,
the fact that I had to hear it twice, not pleasant at all. But we have got the Socceroos squad in. Mm-hmm. It is here. And a big selection, a big cap after all the clamouring, all this social media storm. Jason Cummings is in the Socceroos squad. He has been selected. Oh, no, sorry, that's Jamie McLaren. No, my bad. They are such similar players that I got them mixed up on the list.
They've both represented Scotland before. So
at least if you ask Graham Arnold, they're very similar players, so easy mistake for me to make. But yeah, the Socceroos squad is in, despite my very poor joke. No Jason Cummings. What did we make of this? Because there was very, very, I think, mixed reception would be the charitable phrase to describe the selection. But what did you make of it, Jason?
I looked at it. It was a very uninspiring selection, I thought. That's the word I can think of.
That's another good word.
Because the campaign has stuttered for us. It's stuttered and it's spluttered along the last few internationals. And there's not many changes made to the squad to actually change that up for us. So if you look at it, there's the normal picks. But even if you look at it in terms of Andrew Redmayne's in the squad. He's not even the best goalkeeper in the A-League, so he gets a spot. Danny Vukovic is off the bench as the second goalkeeper. So, you need to, for me, refresh that a little bit. They've picked a couple of returning Socceroos who haven't... so if you're talking about form and they're picking players on form, then they've missed a few opportunities, we think, with Jason Cummings. That's an obvious one. Mark Birighitti, the other one. Cam Devlin as well, potentially. So they've missed a few opportunities, but then they have got returning Socceroos. And I talk of Bailey Wright, who's just led Sunderland to promotion. He's come back into the fold after a significant absence. And Jason Davidson has been selected. And you would say that that's been on form as well. So he hasn't played for the Socceroos for 7 years. We had to look that up. He hasn't played for 7 years. So 2015 was his last cap. He's now 30. He's had a tremendous season in the A-League. He made the All-Stars team, played against Barcelona the other week.
He did.
Went off injured too. That's interesting. So we'll see how that goes with him. So if you're picking players on form like that, you would think he would tend to look at a few others, but they haven't. They've overlooked most of them, and he's gone with sort of the players that he's known and that he's trusted over the campaign. So hopefully they can get the job done. They've got a friendly against Jordan on Thursday morning, and then the UAE and the big one, that's 4 or 5 o'clock, Wednesday the 8th.
Well, I'm going to lean into some really unsurprising for anyone who is a regular listener of this show or a regular listener of the station. I'm going to get into some very cynical areas here.
Okay, go.
Because it was, as you said, an uninspiring team selection. A lot of familiar faces being selected. Not a lot of change. Not the change that many hope to see swing through this Socceroos squad. But here's my cynical take. Why are we surprised? Why are we surprised? Sorry, but Graham Arnold has done this throughout the stretch of his Socceroos time. He has clearly got a tendency to go with people who he knows, who he's worked with before, and who he trusts.
Mm-hmm.
That is, to me, that's not a shock. It's like the wolf saying to the sheep, like, I am going to eat you, and then the sheep being like, oh my God, I'm being eaten by the wolf. Like this is a consistent theme. We've seen it in all the Socceroos squads.
It's the hope that kills you, Lachie.
But people like Ryan Grant, even though he's dropped out of this squad, being picked, even though he's not necessarily in the top couple of Australian right back selections. Mm-hmm. Andrew Redmayne as well. In a crunch time, while other people outside are clamouring for change and for fresh faces, I think Graham Arnold, if I'm in his head, is on the opposite side of the coin. He's thinking, this is really important. I can't afford to make a mistake or take a huge risk or a gamble. I need to go with the people I can trust, the people I know can get the results for me. And whether you like it or not, and I'm telling you now, I do not like it, but this is the way he operates. And I don't necessarily judge him for that, but I do think it's going to end up being his downfall, because the players and the approach that he's picking are not up to standard. And since the 9-game run that we had to start things off, when we were playing considerably easier teams, weren't even playing that well in my view. Since then, nothing's really changed. I just don't really get the angst and the clamour, because Graham Arnold has showed us his approach tactically, selection-wise, for the whole campaign. Why are we shocked that now nothing is changing?
We're not shocked. We just have hope, right? Because this hasn't worked. It hasn't worked.
I don't get why you'd have hope, but anyway.
No. It hasn't worked, and we're kind of hoping for some kind of X factor. So Tommy Rogic is out. So he's our X factor. He didn't play against Japan, and he's out for personal reasons, but they've chosen not to replace him. So there's a spot there. Like, it's not that they're saving money to actually bring someone in. There was talk of others. So who else are we missing? So Jake Brimmer won the medal. There's talk of him maybe giving him a run in the squad. I don't think so yet.
I think that's recency bias. I don't think anyone was talking about that before.
But if he's picking on form, he gets to go. Jason Davidson's in the same boat, right?
Yeah, no, it's fair, but I don't think he was in the conversation before. He wasn't. I think it was a bit of recency
Cummings
bias.
Is not the same footballer as McLaren.
Okay, can we talk a little bit more about this? Because
so that's why he came back and he said, I don't need him because I've got Jamie McLaren.
Yeah, so Adam, reading off the Adam Peacock tweet, he says that he's a similar player to Jamie McLaren, who got the nod instead. His 4 strikers, Taggart, Duke, D'Agostino and McLaren, all offer something different. Don't necessarily agree, but this admission from Graham Arnold, a man who I will admit has frustrated me on a fair few occasions of late.
Yeah.
This was like my breaking point. Because to me, this comment about Jason Cummings being a similar player to Jamie McLaren, it revealed one of 3 things. I haven't finalised which one it is, and I can't tell. One of 3 things. Because anyone who's watched the A-League will tell you there is not a chance that you could mistake Jamie McLaren and Jason Cummings for one another. Visually, or the way they play.
Correct.
Neither way.
Yep.
So it's one of 3 things that is at play here when Graham Arnold says something like this. He either hasn't watched Jason Cummings play in the A-League, and he hasn't been watching the A-League men's, which is maybe improbable given he's picked other players who performed well in the A-League on form.
And Goodwin.
I mean, I guess D'Agostino has had that under-23s experience with Arnie as well. So he either hasn't been watching the A-League and seen Jason Cummings, or he just hasn't been watching Jason Cummings. He has a fundamental misunderstanding of what the respective attributes of Jamie McLaren and Jason Cummings are. He just has completely misinterpreted them as a player because Cummings is a player who can use his body off the ball, bring others into play. McLaren, but did you not see him play in the grand final? He does not. He's a great finisher. He's the best finisher in the league, but he doesn't offer those things. So it's either one of those 2 things, or Graham Arnold has told the media a lie. He either hasn't watched him, he doesn't actually know how to analyse him properly, or he is straight up lying. And I don't know which one of those things is worse. Or maybe the other alternative is that he thought perhaps Taggart is a similar kind of forward to Cummings.
Taggart is similar. Taggart's a link-up
he wanted
guy.
4 different strikers. But even then, that's a lie because he didn't make the comparison between Taggart and Cummings. He made it between 2 players who are completely different strikers.
Well, Cummings has also said that Graham Arnold has not spoken to him. So maybe he's never been even considered or even in the picture at all. It's just the media which are talking about it and want him in there.
Which, when you consider the game that Jamie McLaren has just played in the final relative to the season that Jason Cummings is coming off the back of, it is ridiculous. It's ridiculous that he's not even in
the squad
conversation with this player. It drives me crazy.
I would have him in the squad too. There's 8 A-League players in the squad. The Socceroos squad, there's 8 A-League players and there's 3 uncontracted players that could potentially come back to the A-League, right? So he is watching it. He's just not watching it. He's just not considering him. He's a very stubborn man. He's sticking to his own process, his own players.
So if he's watching it, he's either lying about being similar, or it's he doesn't understand what he is. I think he's lying. I think he's told a lie.
Maybe. Possibly.
There's just no way you could honestly hold your hands up and say they are the same player.
They're not. Taggart's back, which is good for us.
That is a good thing. No, I will say that is a good thing.
He has been scoring. He scored in his last 2 out of the last 3 games, I think, in Japan, which is fantastic. Duke is one of his favourites he goes to, which is interesting. But yeah, 8 A-League players and 3 uncontracted players. So you've got like Aziz Bajic. Who else is uncontracted? You've got Mobile.
Al Mobile was uncontracted at the time of selection.
Right. He's now going to Spain, which is excellent. And his son-in-law is out of contract, Trent Sainsbury.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I always forget that.
Well,
I always forget that.
We pick your favourites and your selection. You'll probably be the captain.
Yeah, I shouldn't really be shocked. But the other small bone of contention, smaller compared to Cummings, and I will admit a certain level of blind spot where it relates to this particular omission. Great to see Nathaniel Atkinson, a Hearts fullback, is getting selected. Always pleased to see that. Must say, though, disappointed to not see Cam Devlin picked for this squad. Now, I know that he is coming off the back of a pretty long layoff. I know that since he's returned from said injury, he hasn't been a consistent starter. But I think the Socceroos have really lacked a steely presence in midfield, and I see that Ken Dougal is back into the Socceroos squad for this, so maybe the intention is to have him be that outlet. But we've really lacked like a nippy, steely, hard-nosed kind of player in the centre of defensive midfield. Cam Devlin, despite the injury layoff in the Scottish Premiership, led the league in tackles. He played like 60 minutes after March in the league, and he was still ahead of the next nearest player in the competition. He is exactly what the Socceroos need in that position, in my opinion. And the fact that look, I know he's still managing a return from injury. The fact he's not even in the squad in any capacity with a player coming out. Now, I know Rogic is not the same player. It blows my mind. Blows my mind that
and
he hasn't had a look.
The other one who's not in the squad is Connor Metcalf. So if you're talking about form and A-League players, didn't he win the Alex Tobin medal?
Yeah, and a surprise too, especially considering
midfielder.
And he also seems like the kind of player who would be really appealing to Graham Arnold. He does have that kind of physical element to his game. He is really good at providing that sort of third man run, being a penalty box threat out of midfield. So yeah, that just really baffling stuff for most people. Again, I can't say that I was shocked by it all. Disappointed but not surprised is my go-to phrase.
I got a funny anecdote about Kenny Dougal for you.
Go for it.
So my smart TV, when I out loud cheer for Dougal, Google will come up and say, "Can you say that again, please?" My Google smart TV, but no, it's I'm talking about Kenny Dougal. Anyway, that was the last Socceroos game. Not that good.
No, I like it. I like it. But yeah, look, despite the clamouring and the questions around the squad, the reality is that this is going to be the group of players that will take us to a critical game after the Jordan friendly.
Yep. So we've got
coming up this week.
Yeah, 3 weeks to go. So Jordan friendly on Thursday morning, and then Wednesday morning we have a UAE knockout qualifier. If we get through that, we get Peru the Tuesday after. So it's a big few weeks for the Socceroos if we want to be involved in Qatar.
It's really tough because obviously we're both standing here. We both want Australia to qualify for the World
absolutely.
Cup, but sometimes it can be very hard to see in the context of some of these things. It can be hard to see a path through. I want to go back to the Tom Rogic thing just really quickly because it kind of links into what I'm saying here. Because I did see a bit of flack coming for Tom Rogic after he left the squad for personal reasons. The rumor mill was in overdrive as to what the reasons might be, whether we were looking at a potential Roy Keane situation here. But the people who were critiquing him for deciding to step aside, regardless of what his reasons were, can get stuffed as far as I'm concerned.
If you're leaving for personal reasons, then it's a big deal.
Yeah,
you don't need to know, and we don't need to know.
We have no idea. And yeah, exactly. That was the thing actually that annoyed me more than people critiquing him, was people that thinking that we have because it's an important moment in Australian football, that we have a right to know. No, we don't. No, we don't. People are not in your work life asking you really personal details about why you didn't turn up to work on Tuesday the 5th of May, why you left early at 4 p.m. No one's asking you those questions, and it's your right to keep that information to yourself.
Correct.
Just because you care a lot about the Australian national team, and most of the players do too, and it is generally seen as a big deal, not everyone feels that same sense of duty-bound obligation to stand by and push through all these circumstances to represent their national team. And so if Rogic chooses not to play for Australia, irrespective of whether it's something really serious or he just doesn't want to play under Graham Arnold, it is his right to do so.
Absolutely.
It is absolutely his right to do so, and not only to do so, but to do so without being questioned why it is. So I hope Tom Rogic, whatever personal reasons are the reasons that he's not in the squad, I hope that he's doing okay. I hope that he's not checking his Twitter. And I hope that in spite of his absence, the Socceroos, despite all my angriness about all of this, can still get through to the World Cup.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Whether or not that will be the case, we'll see. Any other matters to get through, Jason, before we head off? A few transfers, maybe.
Very quickly. Kai Rolls in the Socceroos squad is, by all reports, off to your mob, the Hearts, which is fantastic.
Good piece of business, I think.
Mobile signed in Spain, which is fantastic for us to have someone in the La Liga, and Lawrence Thomas is coming back to the Wanderers. Former Melbourne Victory goalkeeper.
Yes.
So there are a couple of big news, but there seems to be a lot of players being released, players signing. We'll probably have a bit more next week, I guess.
Well, I've got a fun fact for you, Jason, on the Kai Rolls stuff. That with his assumed signing, it's looking very, very close to being a done deal. Obviously, that makes him the third Australian at Hearts currently.
Yep.
But across the past 5 years, that's 6 players from Australia that Hearts have brought in. Can you, off the top of your head, think of a single other? I think Scotland, at Hearts specifically, are the biggest European importers of Australian talent in recent times. Like Xanthi come close. They came close in that 1 year, but over the stretch, Hearts have really done a power of work to get Aussies into Europe.
Which is good. Well, that's what we want. We want to develop young players in Australia and have them go overseas. And if Scotland is a springboard for something else for them, fantastic. Or if they get you some silverware, even better.
And despite what some would say, it is a good league to be making a stepping stone from. And Hearts are a good club to be stepping into bigger opportunities from. Kai Rolls, I think, will be a really good fit. He's obviously got big shoes to fill. John Souttar going across to Rangers, another player with an Australian connection. He's a really excellent ball-playing centre-back. I think that Rolls is not necessarily got those same attributes, maybe more reliant on his physicality, sense of defensive positioning as opposed to ball progression. But I think he's got the physical skill set to do a really good job in Scotland. The only thing I'm disappointed about is that Philip Chanchar went to Livingston. I would much rather have had him at Hearts, to be honest.
There you go. We'll keep an eye on the Scottish League with Ange and the rest of it.
Yeah,
anyway.
honestly, even to satisfy my own
you're angling for a show,
personal
show.
curiosity, I don't care if it has 0 listeners. I will still commit to even a bit part show, just going over all of them and speaking to the right people. But yeah, plenty of a good few important transfers taking place over the last week. It's a very long off season, as you know, Jason. We'll still be here, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more transfers and Socceroos news to talk about over the coming weeks. But that's where we're going to leave it for tonight on the Oz Football Hour. Of course, by this time next week, we will be back at our usual Tuesday time slot, and we'll either be...
No, we'll be previewing the Socceroos UAE game.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So we'll be very, very nervous.
We will.
Very, very nervous indeed. Well, look, I don't think the nerves are going to be particularly good from then until now, and hopefully I'm not physically shaking by the time you see us back on air this time next week. But until then, if you've missed any of the show, you can catch it all on the FNR podcast platforms. We'll podcast the grand final review and our Socceroos selection review separately. So if you just want to get into either of those, if it causes you too much pain to think about the Socceroos and you just want to talk about the A-League Men's Grand Final, the podcast platforms will allow you to do that. So FNR Football Nation Radio is the thing to search on any of your preferred podcast platforms. But until next week, where you'll probably see a very nervous Lachie Flanagan and Jason Goldsmith on the Oz Football Hour, it's goodbye for now.
Vickery looking to build. Barbarouses is quick. Is he in behind Top or Stanley? It doesn't matter! Costa Barbarouses! Wow!
Again! Oh, he's done it!
Unbelievable kick. Mamma mia.
Ever wanted a career in football? At the Global Institute of Sport, you can now study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis right here in Australia. GIS is the largest provider of sports degrees in the UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Sometimes I feel, I don't know.
Buona giornata, buona serata, buona giornata.
There's not really time to relax and take an espresso for Juventus.
You thought I forgot about you, didn't you? You thought I forgot about you, didn't you?
Attaccare!
Welcome to the Euro Show here on FNR Football Nation Radio. The voice that you just heard on that intro, Silvio Berlusconi, is going to be very, very happy right now. He's had a very good 24 hours, and so have we. It's been a very busy weekend for myself, Nick Dabano, and Lachie Flanagan, going through all the European action, all the action going on here in Australia. It's just been a nuts few days. Like, just looking back at everything that's happened, Lachie, not going to lie, mate, I am absolutely pooped.
I'm wrecked, and I know you're still hungover from celebrating Milan's Champions League. Oh, Champions League, what am I talking about? See, that's how tired I am.
I wish they won the Champions League.
Scudetto glory last week, so I know you're still recovering from that. I don't know what I'm recovering from. The 45 minutes where Hearts were level with Rangers in the Scottish Cup final, who knows? But we've been really spoiled in the last couple of weeks as European football watchers. There's just been so much good stuff and a very dramatic for both good and bad reasons on and off the pitch Champions League final to sink our teeth into today.
Yep, and look, there was a... sorry, Lachie, go.
Well, the good thing is we clearly both have our voices to review this, which is more than can be said for the world feed, Tony Jones. Oh, man.
You certainly do. My voice is not great.
Yeah, but you're like on the Tony Jones world feed commentary level of laryngitis, you're at like a 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
There's a croak, but words are being clearly enunciated. I'm not going to have to pull in my co-commentator to step in for you.
Well, it's certainly a lot better than what it was, say, last night after TNC. I went to bed and I actually was sending back a voice message to one of my friends and I could barely even get out a word. And I woke up this morning thinking, oh boy, I think I might need to pull out
my
the
own
show.
Tony Jones moment.
Yeah, but after having a bit of coffee, a nice warm cup of tea as well.
Coffee not traditionally great for the voice, but tea.
It worked, yeah.
Tea's good.
Kilos dos, and then had some oats, and I was like, okay, we're back in business. Then I thought I was going to lose my voice again during the Miami Heat versus Boston Celtics game today. But I had a bit of a sook afterwards, and I felt better. And no, Lachie, we're not going to talk about it.
No, we're not. I want to talk more about Tony Jones, but anyway.
My voice has made it. Tony Jones has
more than can be said for Tony Jones.
Before we get to the action on the field, let's chat about TJ. This is not Chompers. This is TJ, the world feed commentator. Now, the question I have here is, who made the decision to put him to air? And if you were Tony Jones, why didn't you stand aside before the match? I know you're calling the Champions League.
Champions League
but
final.
your reputation is on the line.